Hello and welcome back to Case Closed. Unfortunately, JC Dent, who wrote the review, won't be able to join us this time, so it's just Stuntman and myself. So, Saints Row 4. It's one we've been waiting for quite some time. I was fortunate enough to play it on the dirty heathen Xbox 360 at the Manchester Expo. Got to hang out with Jim Boone. My day off and everything. Simon made me go to work. How dare you make me go and work on my day off? I mean, so unfair of you to send me into the city centre to hang out with Jim Boone and play Saints Row 4. How could you?
Poor
Speaking
you.
of it, yes, oh, poor me. I know, it's, F my life and all that. So anyway, if it's not obvious by now, we both really loved the game. We both pretty much gave it almost the perfect score. There were just those few niggly-naggly little things that kept it from being truly perfect. So, well, what was it specifically that marked it down for you? Because they were only tiny little niggles, and I kind of feel guilty for not giving it the perfect score, but they were just didn't quite fit as a 5 either. So what was it specifically that stopped you from giving it 5 out of 5 anyway?
A lot of people find an issue, it's still like an expansion pack because it looks the same, it feels the same, it just has additional things. But
more of the same, isn't it?
yeah, but
it's the superpowers.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. At least
No,
I
it's a
enjoyed
winning
myself
formula.
that when I judged the game, I did that purely on the basis how much fun I had. And
Exactly.
even on the things that felt quite repetitive, like collecting the blue orbs, to upgrade your superpowers.
Yeah, the clusters. What was it? 1,250 of them in total.
I think it's 1,200 something.
Yeah, it's 1,250, isn't it? 1,250. I mean, you don't need all of them to play the game. You don't even really need all of them to fully enjoy the game. It's just the fact they're there. You get this thing in the back of your head saying, I have to go and get them all, even though I don't need them. And I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
The funny thing is, the funny thing is, at the beginning of the game, it feels quite tedious to do that because you don't have, that high of a jump, you don't you don't run that fast.
You can't run up walls either. You have to
your stamina runs out pretty fast, but when you upgrade a bit, when you progress through the game a bit, it gets quite fun. Just running, collecting them, and it's quite
like
addictive.
running up the tallest building, get the one on the way, get the one on the top, then jump down and glide to the next one. It becomes a lot more fun.
Yeah, and then go off the path, collect a few more, and then further from the objective just to collect a few more, and then you find yourself on the other side of the city.
Yeah, that was definitely the problem I kept having. It's like, right, let's go do this mission over there, but wait, there's one over there. Well, there's another one over there. It's just a little bit out of the way. I'll grab that one as well. Oh, there's one up there as well. I'll grab that. And then the next thing you know, you're in a completely different area, and you're like, what? I'm supposed to be like 1,000 meters that way. Oh, well, there's another one right there. Let's go grab that one whilst I'm here.
And even the activities, I quite like them, actually. I understand that a lot of people have the issue of, most of the side quests being in activities, but I don't know. Except few, I found most of them quite fun.
Yeah, it was weirdly enough, I think my biggest fault with the game is that there's too much to do, if that makes sense. Because there's so much scattered around, it feels kind of like sensory overload. Especially if you're the sort of person that will go and do the sideline activities. Part of you wants to just get on with the plot and find out what's going on, then you notice, well, there's that mayhem mission over there, let's go and do that. And then once you finish that, you're like, let's go grab some more clusters and then go do something else. It becomes quite distracting, and at the same time, then you find yourself a few hours later and you're like, all I've done is side missions, I want to get on with the game. What have I been doing with my time?
But is that really a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing, but that's the thing about it. It's not a bad thing, but it is the worst part about the game, is that you get so caught up in what's going on. It almost makes it feel like it lacks a little bit of focus, which it doesn't really, but it's the way the game is constructed is so much fun to just play that you end up losing focus yourself. So it puts you in a very bizarre position of the best part about the game is also, in a way, its worst part.
Did you find it that it feels like an expansion for you?
I can see the arguments behind that, and
Yeah, but for you personally,
they're
did
not
it feel like an
ungrounded
expansion?
either. Kind of. It did feel like, in a lot of ways, that the content-wise, it could easily have been done as expansion, but considering it originally started out life as an expansion, that's to be expected. It was originally supposed to be some extra DLC that was put in. They just had so many ideas with it, they decided to turn it into a full game. Which I can understand why some people would have a problem with that. Personally, I don't. Because if they'd have done it as an expansion, if you were ever to restart the game, you'd have just felt like, why can't I get all this stuff right from the beginning? The fact that it is now a full game that contains stuff that might as well be an expansion, but at least it is a full game now. You have the fluid progression of getting everything through it. So, I mean, if you went back and played Saints Row the Third, for example, and like you're doing the level where you have to go and climb up the tower. I can't remember what it was called. Where you have the big showdown with that dude. If you had your superpowers there, it would feel out of place.
The thing is, do you have the DLCs for Saints Row the Third?
I haven't had a chance to go through them all.
Well,
properly.
I played the one where you get the superpowers recently. If you compare Saints Row 4 with that one, it just feels much, much better. It didn't feel that satisfying back in Saints Row the Third. It felt like very basic.
It's an add-on, isn't it? That's what I mean. There's only so much you can do with that. So if they have the superpowers there, then if you're playing through the main game, because obviously it's going to carry over, isn't it? Otherwise, people would complain about that. But if you're playing back through it, they just feel out of place in the story that they were making there, and the levels that they were doing. Like when you have to go and fly up on buildings, if you could just run up the side of the building, it breaks the flow. So having it in a completely new game, although it does feel a lot like it's just an expansion, it does allow it to keep that focus, and it makes the campaign a lot longer for it.
You know what I missed though? Is the import of your save games.
Yeah, well, I don't understand why that didn't work properly. You can only import the character. Why didn't they follow over any of the plot elements? I suppose, in a way, it's pretty much a new plot. The major things that happen, like the death of Johnny Gat, that follows over. But it would have been nice to see them follow on more from the various endings and stuff. Have that have an effect.
Yeah, but a lot of games just picked up on the canon ending and just ran with it, so... Yeah, it's kind of okay.
It's not the only game that's ever done that. And now it feels, when we start saying things like that, in a way, it feels kind of like nitpicking. It's like we're criticising them for not doing that when other games don't do it either. Why are they getting a free ride when Saints Row isn't? Do you know what I think it really comes down to?
What?
I think overall, the game is just so damn good. It's just so much fun that those little things are the only things we had to pick out. And they're like, well, you've managed to make everything else so great. Why isn't that there too? And there's some there is some veracity to that. We have a right to pick them up on things like that. But at the same time, there's only so much they can do in a game, especially since they were also building it for the consoles first. And this is one of those occasions where I heard the developers saying that we've run up against, memory limitations. And I genuinely believe them in this case. I don't think it's just a case of shoddy workmanship on their part, because the map is huge. There's so much going on in it.
I still can feel like the draw distance isn't enough, especially when you can jump that high and you can jump off the towers. The ones that you have to kind of claim for yourself, and you can't see the blue orbs for yourself. That's a limitation that I kind of saw and didn't like.
Yeah, that's that we're looking at it from the perspective of a PC gamer though. For us, that being a limitation is just, well, they could probably have implemented that better, but it was made as a console game first, and with limitations like that in place there, that makes a lot more sense because they only have the 512 megs of RAM. Well, really, they only have the 256, and then the rest is VRAM.
Yeah, but I mean, how hard is it to just change the value of draw distance?
Honestly, I don't know, but I do know that they'd have to do things like render the further they'd have to render different textures, different assets for different draw distances, and there's only so much work that can be put into it. But I'm not saying it's not a valid complaint. I'm saying that because they've made it as a console game first, I can understand why they were having limitations like that. From a console perspective, they really have come up against the memory limitations. For us, not so much, and it feels like that's the only real complaint we have, is that they haven't put some of the more advanced features into the PC. But considering that they are primarily really a console, yeah, exactly, it still looks great. It's a hell of a lot of fun. I've certainly seen an improvement over the previous game. There is still some pop-in from time to time, but not nearly as much. So
sometimes it's hard to determine if it's, it is meant to be. Like there was one mission where everything was kind of glitched, and I thought I was having my graphics card was melting down or something.
Yeah.
Because some of the textures when displaying, models had like glitches all over them, and no, I was really worried. But then I thought that's probably just a mission.
But that's the thing, isn't it? Because the entire thing is set in a simulation. I mean, I've noticed if you go up to any wall at any point in the game, you'll see it flicker occasionally, because that's part of the simulation. You know what I think they've done? I think they've been crafty in this case. I think they've used this as an excuse to make shortcuts in certain areas, because they're like, oh, that popped in there. People just think that that's part of the simulation. We can get away with doing it. But the thing is, because it's all part of because they set very early on that the simulation does have its issues, like the flickering of the people and the flickering of the walls, they can get away with doing that. So it does allow them a bit more freedom than a lot of games would have. So we can't really say for certain, was it just that the draw distance is terrible, or did they intentionally make it that way?
I'm sure they...
Yeah, I think it's more to do with the draw distance, personally, but all things considered, they've still done a fantastic job. It may not be the most visually impressive game, but because of the way they've used the colours in that in particular, it still looks really nice. It's very colourful, it's very bright, it's very vibrant. It feels very organic, fluid world. And
I really like the police sirens.
Yeah, I like the new police cars as well. I do like the design of them.
And the sirens look really an upgrade from the last game.
I
don't know why, but I picked on that thing.
I think they've done a lot of. They made a lot of improvements to the lighting. That's for certain. I also noticed improvements in things like the specular effects, the dust and things. Like during the early on when you're well, not early on, but when you finally get your real body back and you're fighting your way through the alien ship. I thought the mist effects in there, they were really good, even though it was just a static image.
Actually, on the first mission,
it didn't really move that much, but it looked really nice.
The first mission when you go in with a helmet, you still don't see the very first mission. And when you end up at the entrance of the bunker, there's like some sort of fog and mist.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, the first thing I thought was Metro.
Yeah, it was really nice. That was a very good effect. It was another one of those things where they cheated, though, because it wasn't really an interactable mist, but it still looked really good.
Yeah, and especially considering that, I start thinking about Metro, and that kind of, I think, ups that in my mind. I have to ask you, though, GC found an issue that when you have superpowers, you don't use guns. Did you have that issue yourself?
I can see why you wouldn't need to, but I never felt like there was no point to doing it at all. The way they've made the weapons now with the different skins and the upgrades you can get for them, like getting acid bullets for your SMG and the dubstep gun, as much as it is just a gimmick and it's not really that great as a weapon, it's still a hell of a lot of fun to use. So although I didn't need to, I had fun with it. And the black hole gun is amazing. It is far and away my favourite weapon in the entire game. So no, I never really had that problem personally. I can understand why you wouldn't need to, but I still wanted to.
For me, the main character still feels like the biggest, baddest weapon, because I usually run up to the target and press F just to execute them.
Well, yeah, there's always that.
And
But
the animations are quite, they're still varied, and even though they cycle through, you're quite powerful, and it's quite fun.
I did that with a lot of the minor enemies because it just looks great. Like, throwing them up in the air and then doing a back kick and getting them in the groin and throwing them on the floor and then landing on their face with both knees at the same time. But the only problem I have with that is I have this habit of seeing this massive group of enemies and I'll just go charging into the middle of them and jump on them and kill one, and then all the rest of them just murder me to death. They just murder me in the face, and I'm like, I probably shouldn't do that. So I do sort of fall back to some of my guns for a little while. The fact that they took away the regenerating health does help offset it a massive amount. You feel powerful, and you do feel extremely powerful, maybe even overpowered, but not over the top. If you get, or maybe it's the other way around. He feels over the top, but not overpowered. There is still enough there to give you a challenge.
When you get, the police awareness just up to the point where you get called the wardens, you really have to run.
Yes, you do. They've done a very good job of balancing it out. Even on co-op, when you're maxed out and everybody's coming to try and murder you to death, you still struggle. So I thought they did a great job of balancing it. It's challenging where it needs to be, but it gives you enough freedom to just go and dick around if you want to, which is great. It's what a good sandbox game should do.
And now, remember the Dominatrix was meant to be the name of this expansion, and now have you looked at Steam Store and saw that one of the upcoming DLCs is Enter the Dominatrix?
Yes, I know.
What do you think that you will see there?
I don't know, actually. That could be interesting. I have a funny feeling it's going to focus very much around the alien anal probe. Just a feeling, But yeah, the one thing we know for certain is that when they release DLC for Saints Row, it's going to be just as crazy as everything before it. So I think the lesson to take away here is if you like Saints Row, if you like stuff that's crazy, you'll love Saints Row. If you don't, you won't. But at the same time, one thing that really took me aback is very early on is how serious it was. As much as they were playing up the superheroes and the craziness, it still has a very serious story to it with what's actually happening and events that I don't want to spoil for people.
The serious story is dug quite deep.
My point is it's still there. I was certainly struck by that with the I mentioned where you're actually escaping from the simulation, where you're back into your real body. It's the way the tone shifted was quite jarring, but it was also fluid. It flowed easily between the two, which I thought was a real accomplishment, because there's some games where any kind of media where you'll get a sudden shift in tone and it just completely throws everything off. They did flow nicely between the two.
The thing is that Saints Row has their own identity. It can't be, compared to GTA anymore. It's the only common thing that they have is open world and, drivable cars. That's it. And remember when Saints Row 3 came out, a lot of people started complaining that, Saints Row, had very, very serious cutscenes, the tone was quite grim. But inside the game, you just could be a dick and, just have fun.
But you can do the same thing with Grand Theft Auto.
Not to that extent.
No, not to the same extent, but still, you can. That's the thing with the sandbox, is no matter how tight they focus the story, once you're actually in there, you can still go and do mostly what you want within the confines of the engine.
Yeah, but I mean the side activities and everything, like, pour shit all over the pedestrians.
Yeah.
Yeah, my point being is, if they just kept the serious tone, I think they would have been worse off. They would have been compared to GTA, and they wouldn't have found their own identity.
It is still being compared, though. That's the thing.
And it will always be.
It's the nature of the beast. But if you look at it, you might as well, if you're doing that, you might as well compare Grand Theft Auto to Assassin's Creed, because they're both open world. Okay, Assassin's Creed has horses instead of cars, but it's still the same principle. Okay, then to compare Assassin's Creed to Red Dead Redemption, they're two completely different games. The only thing they have in common, yeah, Grand Theft Auto, but the only thing they have in common is the fact that they're an open world. They're different setting. They have different
I think that's not.
motivations. They have different direction.
I think that's not the issue. The issue is that people are looking to compare something to something else. If there are people who compare Call of Duty to Arma games, and it's comparing, I don't know, an elephant to a horse.
Yeah,
You can ride on both. Yeah, but come on, they are quite different animals.
that is the problem we have with a lot of the mentality of gamers and people in general these days. Something always has to be like something else. Nothing can ever be its own thing. You'll find for one of two reasons. They'll either compare it to something they like because they want to say it's like this and it's really good, or they'll compare it to something they like and say it's not like this, or it should be more like this, but it fails. So they're doing it either to make it seem better or worse, and they can't ever just take things as what they are.
It's bad when it's the same. It's bad when it's different.
Yeah, it depends on what you're looking at. It depends on which direction you're coming from, and it's always going to happen. Saints Row is its own beast. It is what it is. It nods at a lot of other things. I mean, the opening scene was a reference to Predator. Then the thing with the rocket is a reference to Armageddon. It even has the same song when you're breaking the rocket down. And then there's hey Kinsey, wanna fuck? Romance. Yeah, it's Mass Effect, and then there's the Matrix.
Romance Cube David.
Yeah, I always found that one quite weird. I think they deliberately put that one in there because of Mass Effect, actually, because he's in there, but he's never been a romanceable character. I think they were just carrying across the motif there with the Mass Effect feel. But that's the thing. It's not trying to rip off other ideas. It's not trying to be like them. It's just saying this is popular. We like it. We're going to make a nod to it. It's a pastiche.
I think they just don't care, and they just want to make a joke out of it, and
they just want to make a fun game.
Actually, when I was playing it, I had an idea. You know, when there are shows that make fun of other shows, it's the same exact thing here.
It's the comedy piss take, isn't it? It's like Meet the Spartans or Scary Movie. It's the Scary Movie of the video game world.
Just a good one.
It's just a really good one. It's serious when it's serious enough that people who want something serious will find it there if they look. But you do have to kind of dig pretty deep. But it also has enough fun in there that it's just fun. And that's something that a lot of games don't have anymore. They're all hard-boiled and the brown or grey filter, and let's make it really serious. And oh my god, this character just died. And they have a little bit of that as well. But even when they're doing that,
they're doing it over the top.
Yeah. Apart from the death of Johnny Gat, which I actually thought was handled extremely well, but even that, it was so ridiculously over the top what was actually happening. You're falling out of the sky, shooting tanks with pistols and machine guns and skydiving through bits of broken machinery, and then Johnny Gat dies.
I actually don't think that they handled the death of Johnny Gat good enough, because
I don't think
I even didn't understand that he's dead for quite some time. It's just, where's Johnny? He can't be dead. It's Johnny Gat. Come on.
But he's not dead because he came back in Saints Row 4. Ah. But that's the thing. Is they try a lot of different things, and sometimes they don't hit the mark, and sometimes they do. It just feels like a lot of people criticise them too much for one reason or another. It's like, what are the hardcore fans of Saints Row? They say, this isn't Saints Row, when what they actually mean, when it really comes down to it, it's not enough like Grand Theft Auto anymore. It was very close when it started, and now it's not.
I think, the best mission to represent what Saints Row series now was the last mission of Saints Row. When they were making a film on the Mars.
Yeah. Gangsters in space.
Yeah. I think that was the mission to sum up what Saints Row is all about now.
Agreed. It's
when somebody died, is no, and
and they really over the top acting.
Yeah. I will take you down.
It's not for everyone.
Anyway, to wrap this up,
but it is for everyone. Yeah, pretty much.
So, what do you expect from Saints Row 5?
My thought is what they're going to do is they're going to move away from Steelport. They're going to go with more of keep it more with the Mass Effect theme and have different planets. I think it's going to go into the Galactic personally. It's the only real place I can see it going anymore. They're certainly going to have to move to a new location, if nothing else.
I think they will get a lot of shit if they go to Steelport again.
Yeah. As nice as Steelport is, it's the fact that it's just Steelport. Unless they make some massive changes to it, like say that it's hit by a nuke or something, and then completely rebuilt from the ground. You never know with Saints Row, they might just do that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to stay in Steelport anymore. If it is, it's only going to be right at the beginning. It'll be one of those, like, they'll make you think that it's all Steelport, and they'll give you millions of, like, little things to do, and then you do, like, 4 missions and you're somewhere else. You never go back.
I think it's just big enough that the franchises, and it makes enough money to just go other places.
Yeah, well, they've said they don't know where to go with it next, and I can appreciate that from the fact that they've gone from being just a street hood to being the president of the USA and an intergalactic savior. Where do you go next? But they'll figure something out. If nothing else, simply because the Saints Row franchise is just too big to die. Maybe we'll go back and we'll start a new character somewhere else in another city, and we'll go right back to the beginning, just keep the madcap humour. Who knows? But there'll be one. And whatever they do with it, it'll be more of the same in a lot of ways, but it'll still be something completely unexpected.
Saints Row 8, be the god.
Yeah, why not?
Create the universe in just one day. Because
Yeah,
you're just
why
so
not?
powerful.
They could go with the whole God of War motif and just rip the shit out of that series and have you fighting other gods.
Actually,
The city of the gods. Why not?
That's an idea. I think they will invent a time machine and just adventures through time.
That could work. Saints Row dinosaurs.
Yep. Jimbo and
Right,
Kenny
I could just see that now. The boss of the Saints sat on the head of a T-Rex. Like it's the most natural thing in the world. Nobody saying anything unusual about it in a cutscene. You just sat there on the head of a T-Rex. Why not? It's Saints Row.
Anything can happen.
Exactly. And I think that's the best thing to take away from this. Anything can happen.
Yep.
And that's why we love it so much.
Yep.
So everybody, that's case closed. So thank you for watching and come back for more.
I wonder where